God never intended for you to learn about heaven or hell from people today who claim to have been there. Every single thing that you need to know about this, as well as everything else in the Christian life, comes from the one book that God said that He wrote that was supposed to be your source of all that you need to know for life and godliness. The end of Revelation, John includes this pretty sober warning. Revelation 22:18, if anybody adds anything to what is written in here, God will add to that person the plagues described in this book. So I would just be really cautious about believing somebody who's got something else that's not actually in here. All you need to know about these things and every other thing related to those things is in the one book that Jesus authorized His apostles to write. That is the book that you were supposed to know and understand and memorize. Revelation chapter 21, verse 1, John said, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them now, and they will be His people, and God Himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning or crying or pain any more, for the former things have passed away. And He who was seated on the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. Also He said to me, Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. And He said to me, It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end." Many people have a secret fear about heaven they are afraid to admit. Namely, it sounds boring to them. Well, the Bible gives a much different picture, both of the joys of heaven and the torments of hell, but you have to know how to read the symbolism. John concludes his revelation with this vision because understanding these things will do more to shape your life than perhaps anything else in the Bible. So let's talk first about heaven. I'm going to give you 5 words that describe the vision that we see of heaven in these last 2 chapters. 5 words, they all start with R. First word is renewal. Verse 1, John describes a new heaven and a new earth. Now there are 2 words for new in Greek. There is neos, which means brand new, and then there is kainos, which means remade. It is this word kainos that is used, remade, not brand new. That's the same thing that's happening with the new heaven and the new earth. It's not a completely new thing, it's a remade version of the old. British theologian N.T. Wright says that we get a glimpse of this in the resurrection of Jesus, which is called the first fruits of the new creation. The first fruits are the first fruits of the harvest. They give you a sampling of what is to come after it, a taste, a glimpse. That's what Jesus' resurrection was. It was a glimpse of our future. It was a glimpse of the world's future. Jesus' resurrection, His body had a continuity with the past. He had a body that you could see and touch, and He had a body that people recognized and knew who He was. He ate food, yet His body did not have the same limitations. He flies around. At one point, He apparates into a room. N.T. Wright says one day God is going to do with the entire cosmos what He has already done with the resurrected Jesus. Jesus' resurrection was the appetizer to the full course meal of restoration. It was the trailer to the blockbuster film of redemption. In other words, it's everything that we loved about the old creation minus the curse of sin. The new heavens and the new earth are everything we loved about the old heavens and old earth minus the curse of sin. Creation's beauties are heightened, its pleasures are strengthened, and our limitations are removed. In heaven, we'll experience pleasure without pain, beauty untainted by the curse. By the way, this ultimate version of heaven does not exist yet. It's coming. Do you see that? John says, verse 1, that it's something that God brings after He destroys the old heaven and the old earth. Now you say, well, wait a minute. Doesn't the Bible talk about God being in heaven now? Doesn't it talk about believers dying and going to heaven now? Yes, it does. The Bible says, wherever God is, that's where heaven is. And it talks about when believers die, to be absent with the body is to be present with the Lord, 2 Corinthians 5:8. So believers who die are in heaven now. But here's the thing. The current heaven is just a temporary holding place. It's like a layover. But it's a glorious holding place, but that's what it is. It's a holding place until God brings the real thing, the new heavens and the new earth. Number 2, reunion. That's verse 3. Verse 3 says, the dwelling place of God will be with man. They shall be His people, and God will be with them as their God. Heaven is where God and His people are reunited together. In heaven, we're going to be reunited with all of our loved ones and friends who died in Jesus. You see, one of God's purposes in salvation was to create an eternal family united by a love that never fades, where we never experience heartache, and we never have to say goodbye. Those loved ones in Jesus who have been taken from us in death will be restored. Isaiah 49:22, this is what the sovereign Lord says. In that last day, I will give the signal. I'll snap my fingers, I'll whistle or whatever, and the angels will carry your little sons back to you in their arms. They will bring your daughters on their shoulders. And I have to think that this refers to parents who've lost children, maybe in an accident or a miscarriage or a disease. They're going to see their son, God says, brought back by the angels in their arms. Or they're going to see their lost daughters carried back in the shoulders of angels. angels, and what a beautiful and glorious day that's going to be. Of course, the greatest reunion is with God himself, who will now permanently be in our midst. Chapter 22, John goes on and says, we believers, we're going to see his face, and his name is going to be somehow written on our foreheads, and night will be no more. They will need no light of lamp or sun, for the Lord their God will be their light. By the way, I think the night here is more symbolic, not that the earth ceases to rotate, but that the night, the darkness of fear and sin will be gone. His presence will be our constant light. We will never feel the darkness of loneliness or abandonment or judgment. We will bask forever in the beauty and glory of his face, radiating with his truth and beauty and love. We'll be so intimately connected to him, it's as if we'll have his name tattooed to our foreheads. I'm assuming that's symbolic in some way, but a tattoo always signifies a permanent relationship. Hear this, listen, heaven's greatest joy is reunion, and the greatest reunion is reunion with God himself. And there we will enjoy his eternal and loving and omnipotent companionship forever and ever, and our hearts will be so filled with love and delight and joy in him, we won't even know how to contain it. Number 3, release. Verse 4, he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more, neither shall there be mourning or crying or pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. No pain means no chronic illness, no aching joints. No tears means no depression, no fear, no worry, no stress, no misunderstanding, no betrayal, no talking bad about each other, no relational conflicts, no more emergency rooms, no more intensive care wards, no more chemotherapy units, no more pharmacies or children's hospitals or funeral homes, no more homicides departments or grief counselors or security guards, no more tax forms or waiting lines at the DMV. God has already saved us from the punishment of sin, that there we will be saved from the power of sin and the presence of sin and ultimately the pain of sin. This is the final work of salvation. One day the same hands that were pierced for you will wipe away gently every tear from your eyes. Then we will finally experience life in a world without sin, which may be the greatest overlooked benefit. No sin. I will finally be able to look out of these eyes without the selfishness and the suspicion and the jealousy that so plagues everything that goes on in my heart. What's it like to be sinless? What's it like to finally have a pure heart? Sometimes people ask, well, when Jesus wipes away our tears, does that mean that we're not going to be able to remember what happened on earth? Because I can remember some times in my life that still make me weep, and so is God just going to wipe away our memory? No. There's nothing in the Bible that indicates that he wipes our memory, that we can't remember what happened back then. What it means is that he transforms our pain into joy. Paul uses 2 images to talk about how we'll think about our pain in heaven. These are images you should internalize. They are precious images. The first is in Romans 8, and it's the image of giving birth. He said, life now is like being in labor, the pangs of labor that are very painful, but they're almost forgotten about the moment that you hold that new child in your arms. It's not that you can't remember it, it's that they're just engulfed by the joy of this baby that you now have. He said, that's what your life is going to be like. From what I read in the Bible about heaven, it's going to be that there's so much joy in the finished product of what God did that we're going to look back and say, what pain are you talking about? I can barely remember it. It's just been engulfed in the beauty of what God did. That's the first image. The second image Paul uses is in 1 Corinthians 15. He says, death in that day is swallowed up in victory. Think about that word swallow. When you swallow something, it becomes part of you. In the same way, Paul says our experiences with pain and death make the end product sweeter and even more beautiful than if we had not gone through them. You've probably seen somebody that you love go through suffering and really grow from it, hadn't you? Or maybe you've gone through some painful chapter of your life and you couldn't understand the purpose, like, God, why is this happening? But already you look back on it and you see how it produced something good in you. If already with a limited time and limited perspective, you can already see some of the good reasons for some of the bad things in your life, don't you think, given infinite time and God's perspective, you're going to see a reason for all of it? And how's it going to feel in that moment when you get to heaven and see how God kept all of his promises and there was not one stray molecule? He was using all things for the good purpose of your life, and he used every moment to weave his beauty and glory into you. In that moment, all the sad things on earth are going to come untrue. Come untrue doesn't mean that they weren't true. Doesn't mean you forget about it. It just means that where they once led you to think that it was devastating, you're going to see how God rewove those things for a good purpose and for his glory, and you're good. Number 4, reassignment. Chapter 22, verse 3. Like I mentioned at the beginning, lots of people have this image of being really bored in heaven. But look at how heaven gets described in chapter 22. There, his servants will serve him. What do servants do? They're not bored. They're busy. They're constantly going places and doing things. Work, you see, was part of God's original creation. Work was not added because of the curse. It was part of how God created us to be fulfilled. We did work in paradise, which means that when God restores the earth, work is going to be a part of the new creation too. Except it won't be like it is here, filled with worry and struggle and toil and bad bosses. God is going to assign to us each very fulfilling work in heaven. You see, God knows how you're shaped. He knows how He designed you. He knows what you love to do. Maybe you're already doing it. Not many people have that privilege, but maybe you already know exactly what you're created for. Maybe you love building buildings and you're doing that. Maybe you love inventing or producing or leading. There's only two kinds of jobs that we know won't be there. There won't be any doctors because nobody's sick, and there won't be any evangelists because everybody's saved. But suffice it to say, we won't be bored. Boredom is part of the curse. Jesus died to put away boredom. Boredom's going away forever. There we're going to be more fulfilled, more engaged, more entertained, and more alive feeling than ever. For the first time, some of you are going to know what it means to live according to your calling, because you didn't get to experience it here on earth. Maybe life, maybe bad decisions of yours, or maybe just the way life went. You'll never be in a job where your real potential is released. There. You don't have to worry about not finding that on earth, because there, God will have you working at your fullest potential. You'll be reassigned. Number 5, last one, reign. Chapter 22, verse 5, there they will reign forever and ever. Now, I'll be totally honest with you. I'm not quite sure over whom we reign. Some have said it means angels. Others said it means over creation itself. We're going to reign over creation. I'm not exactly sure whom we reign over or how we reign, but I am looking forward to finding out. The point I want you to take away from this is you are destined to be royalty. You're destined to lead. You're destined to reign. You're not destined to be an insignificant, groveling peon with no importance or no responsibility. God created you to be a reigning prince or princess. So start acting that way. I don't mean start bossing each other around. I mean like, because you're going to be servants also, but I mean that you begin to see that you are created with the dignity of being a son or daughter of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Renewal, reunion, release, reassignment, reign.